If you are learning AOSP but your computer or internet connection isn't great, you don't need to rebuild Android every time you want to experiment. That was exactly my problem. So instead of rebuilding a full Android image again and again, I decided to use a ready Android Automotive 14 emulator and focus on one small problem. Can I build my own launcher and make Android treat it as the real home application? Why I choose this approach? A full AOSP build can be expensive. It needs a lot of disk space, memory, CPU time, and sometimes a lot of patience. For a beginner, I think this can easily become a distraction. So, for this stage, I wanted to separate two things: learning Android platform concepts and waiting for Android to compile. For daily development, I'm usually using the ready Android Automotive emulator. Later, when the project is ready, I can integrate it into the actual AOSP system image. This is the custom launcher I built with Kotlin and Jetpack Compose. At this point, it is still a normal Android application. It isn't a system app, it isn't platform sign, and I haven't added any custom cell Linux policy. For now, I only want Android to recognize it as a valid home application. Before changing the launcher, I first check the current Android user. This is important on Android Automotive because the visible driver user is not always user 0. So instead of hard coding a user ID, I ask Android which user is currently active. This is a small detail, but it's a good example of why Automotive is different from a normal phone setup. Finding the current home. Next, I ask Package Manager which application is currently handling the home intent. At this point, Android's original car launcher was still the default. Then I queried all applications that could handle the home intent, and my ComposeCarHome activity appeared in the list. That told me Android recognized my application as a valid launcher candidate. Setting my launcher as home. Now I could set ComposeCarHome as the default home application for the current user. After that, I sent the home key event and Android switched to my launcher. But just seeing my launcher on the screen isn't enough. I wanted to verify that Android itself believed was the default home application. Verification. So I query Package Manager again. This time the result of home activity was ComposeCarHome. This is an important habit I'm trying to build while learning Android security. The reboot test. Then came the test I actually cared about. I rebooted Android Automotive emulator completely. I didn't manually launch my application after boot. I just waited for Android to start. And when the system finished booting, ComposeCarHome came back automatically as the default launcher, so the home selection survived the reboot. What this doesn't mean, there is an important distinction here. My launcher is currently installed as normal application and assigned as a default home for the active user. It isn't yet part of Android system images. It isn't inside the system or production partition. And this experiment doesn't require platform signing or custom cell Linux rules. There are different layers of Android security and I want to explore them separately instead of mixing everything together. Why this matters for security. For me, the interesting part of this project isn't really the launcher UI. The interesting part is what sits underneath it. User packages, intent resolution, rules, application identity signing, system applications, permission, and eventually cell Linux and platform trust boundaries. I'm using a small project like this as a practical way to understand Android security from the inside. The next step is to move from the development setup toward a more traditional AOSP integration. I'll build a really signed version of the launcher, look at how Android verifies application identity, and then start integration the launcher as a pre-installed system application. After that, we'll gradually get into privilege, permissions, direct boots, the Linux binder, and HAL and other Android platform security concepts. I'm still learning this step by step, and that's exactly what I want this series to be, not just finished projects, but the decisions, mistakes, debugging, and security lessons behind them. If you are also learning AOSP, Android internals, or Android security, subscribe to Android Security Lab channel. And if you are working with limited hardware or slow internet connection, I hope this series shows that you can still start small and learn the important part without rebuilding the entire platform every day.